The moment upper management officially announced my promotion, the entire office floor practically erupted. Congratulatory messages started popping up one after another on Slack. "Congrats, Jason. The new VP has to buy us drinks." Drinks. Jason finally got the top spot. The notification badges on the group chat were blowing up. I was about to click into the chat when my phone rang. It was the admin department, telling me to attend an impromptu company press conference at 3 p.m. At the conference, the chairman himself would announce my appointment as Vice President of Strategic Planning. My brain hadn't even fully processed it before my colleagues were pulling me out of my chair and dragging me to the break room. "Jason, let's get a celebratory round of drinks started early. You should have been VP years ago. I've been saying it's unfair for so long." I just laughed and waved my hand. "Don't be ridiculous. Everyone has their role and I just do what the company asks of me." Even though I said that, I could feel a thrill of excitement. In my 12th year in the industry, I'd worked my way up from a junior planner to a project manager, then from manager to department director. I'd ground myself down to become the guy who knew the company's strategy inside and out. The promotion may have been slow in coming, but it felt solid. I glanced down at my phone at the screenshot of the announcement. Jason Johnston promoted to Vice President, overseeing strategic planning and human resources coordination. My fingertips trembled slightly as I looked at that notification. I had waited for this day for so long. To make sure I didn't mess up at the press conference, I went to the records room in the admin building to prepare my speech and materials. I was already an expert at navigating the company's internal system. This promotion meant I'd be taking on some HR authority. I planned to download the latest organizational chart and position distribution table to present the company's team expansion plans. After logging into the system's backend, I first searched by job title keywords to pull up the data for all current department heads. While the file was downloading, I casually clicked on this quarter's layoff list, mainly to cross-reference something related to resource optimization. It was just an idle click, but my hand froze on the mouse. I saw my own name on the list of personnel to be terminated. It was written right there, Jason Johnston. Submitted by Edward. My mind went blank, and the smile on my face froze instantly. The system showed the request was submitted last Friday at 7:26 p.m. I was on a business trip in Chicago that day. Wendy was the one who stayed behind at the office to handle financial data. She had told me she needed to work late that Friday, and Edward was staying with her to help reconcile the reports. Edward, Wendy's young protege. Everyone in the company knew how much she looked out for him. But even if she was looking out for him, how could an assistant who'd only been here for 3 months possibly have the authority to touch my position? I quickly clicked into the details page. The notes section read, "Lacks strategic alignment. Recommend termination." Didn't that sound like a standard line from a layoff template? Like they couldn't even be bothered to change the sentence? My mind was a chaotic mess, but my actions became incredibly calm. I clicked on the approval workflow and confirmed that the submitter was indeed Edward, and that he had used the VP authorization code to perform the action. I'm no tech amateur. That was Wendy's exclusive administrative credential. She gave her credentials to a fresh out-of-college assistant, and he used them to fire me? My palms were ice cold, but my heartbeat thundered in my ears. I didn't dare click any further and quickly closed the back-end page. The words I had just seen were seared into my brain, replaying over and over. Submitted by Edward. VP authorization code. I forced down the unease in my chest and dialed Wendy's number. She picked up right away. "Hello, Jason? I was just about to message you. The press conference is all set. 3 o'clock this afternoon. The chairman is going to announce it himself, so make sure you get there early." I struggled to keep my voice from shaking. "Are you free right now? I'm in the records room. I need to ask you something." "Sure. I'll be there in 5 minutes." I could wait 5 minutes, but my patience and my trust might not last that long. "What are you doing in the records room all of a sudden?" Wendy asked with a smile as she walked in, handing me a cup of coffee. "Getting ready for this afternoon." I took the cup but didn't drink. I was standing in front of the computer, and the monitor behind me, which I hadn't turned off, was still on the layoff list page. I turned around and looked at her. Were you at the office last Friday night? She nodded. Going over data with Edward. Why? I clenched my jaw. Did you know that submitting names to the layoff system requires high-level clearance? She paused for a second, then smiled. Why are you asking about this all of a sudden? Did you know that Edward submitted a termination request? I stared at her, enunciating every single word. Her expression stiffened for a moment before she looked away. Oh, that. Don't worry about it, he was just messing around. He said he wanted to test the system permissions, so I let him try. I sucked in a sharp breath. A test? You think putting my name on a layoff list is fun? Oh, come on, don't take it so seriously. She frowned, as if I were making a big deal out of nothing. He was just curious. I didn't think it would actually scare you. You can just go into the back end and cancel it yourself. It's no big deal. I stared hard into her eyes. And the clearance? You gave it to him? I'm the VP. What's the big deal if he uses my account? He doesn't know the procedures, it's not like he could actually change anything. She said breezily. Don't be so petty. I looked at this woman, my fiancée of 5 years, the person who had stood by my side through countless late nights at the office. She called me petty. My voice dropped. Do you have any idea? If I hadn't seen this list beforehand, every single executive would have known this afternoon that I was being laid off. I knew you'd see it, she said, her tone growing impatient. Don't you check the system every day? He was just playing a prank to see if you were paying attention. Come on, stop being so sensitive. So he was just messing around, and all I had to do was cancel it. The problem was all mine? Jason, it was just a misunderstanding. Don't act like we're plotting against you, she said with a frown. You have the press conference this afternoon. Don't let this get to you. I took a deep breath and nodded. Fine, I get it. Seeing my compliance, she finally smiled and reached out to pat my shoulder. I sidestepped her. I'm heading to the conference room to get ready. You should head over soon too, she said, not noticing anything amiss as she walked away. I stood there, watching her disappear down the hall, my fingers clenching the lukewarm cup of coffee. When I got back to the strategy department, my desk was already covered in celebratory cupcakes and balloons. My colleagues crowded around to congratulate me, and I responded to each of them with a mechanical smile. Congratulations, Jason. It's finally your turn to be VP. We're all so happy for you. I nodded. Thanks, everyone. Drinks are on me after work today. Just then, Edward walked over in a blue suit, holding a bouquet of flowers. Jason, I had these flowers ordered especially for you. I was so thrilled when I heard about your promotion, he said with a respectful smile, but his tone carried a subtle passive aggression. I glanced down at the card on the bouquet. From Edward, assistant to the VP. Assistant to the VP? When was that position created? Who approved it? Why had I never heard of it? He seemed to notice me looking at the card and quickly explained, Oh, that was Wendy's idea. It was just decided today. She said I'll be reporting directly to you from now on, and I can run any errands you need. I managed a weak smile. That's great. His eyes flickered. By the way, about the system thing, I'm so sorry. It really wasn't on purpose. I was just clicking around out of curiosity and didn't know how my name got into that list. I stared at him, my voice devoid of any warmth. That kind of curiosity isn't usually welcome in this company. He faltered and quickly looked down. I know I was wrong. I hope you can overlook my mistake. I turned and sat down, flipping through a file, but my heart was in turmoil. His tone just now, that phrase reporting directly to you, sent an unexplainable chill down my spine. I've never been someone who could be easily replaced. But in that moment, for the first time, I felt like my replacement had already been lined up. 5 minutes before the end of the workday, a notification popped up on my screen. You are on the termination list. Do you wish to cancel? The request will be automatically submitted to HR at 5:59 p.m. I stared at the red text on the screen, my hand hovering over the mouse, but I never clicked cancel. I knew that if I did, it would all be as if it never happened. Edward would continue to be Wendy's new assistant to the VP. I would still be the company's vice president, and everything would go back to normal. But behind that normalcy was the fact that someone had quietly tried to push me off a cliff when I wasn't looking. I looked at the blinking notification box, and only one thought echoed in my mind. They think I don't have the guts to walk away, but they never asked if I was worth keeping. The clock ticked over to 5:59 p.m. The screen flickered, and the system automatically submitted the request. Your termination request has been processed. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. On the first day of my promotion, I decided to walk away. At 7 p.m., I walked through the door of my apartment to find Wendy already changed into lounge clothes, scrolling through a TV show on the sofa. "You're back?" She held up her phone. "I ordered from your favorite Thai place and got some skewers, too. We have to celebrate tonight." I didn't answer right away. I put down my bag and went into the bathroom to splash some water on my face. The man in the mirror had a hint of stubble and looked utterly exhausted. The aroma of food wafted in from the living room. I walked back to the sofa, where Wendy had already set out the takeout containers and handed me a pair of chopsticks. "Please, Mr. Vice President, have a seat." I took the chopsticks and forced a smile. "The VP hasn't even warmed his seat yet, and you're already throwing a party. She said with a laugh, picking up a piece of tofu skin, "you just worry too much." "Everything went smoothly today, didn't it? Look how happy everyone was." "Yeah," I said, tearing open a drink. "Everyone was very happy." She noticed my tone was off and tilted her head to look at me. "What's wrong?" I stared at her for a few seconds before asking nonchalantly, "When you were working late at the office last Friday, did you let Edward use the system?" Wendy paused. Her smile didn't change, but her chopsticks hesitated for a moment. "Are you still hung up on that? You don't think I should be?" "Jason," she said, her tone slightly reproachful, "you're being way too sensitive. He's just a kid who doesn't even know his way around the system yet. He clicked the wrong thing and nothing bad happened to you." I leaned back against the chair, my eyes fixed on the tissue box on the table. "You do know that once a termination request is officially submitted, it has to go through the board. If that happened, I wouldn't be able to clear my name no matter what." "But you saw it and it wasn't actually submitted," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You just had to cancel it. Why are you trying to turn this into a federal case?" I looked at her without speaking for a long time. She casually opened a packet of pickled green beans and continued eating. "Don't take everything to heart," she said while chewing. "Promotion is a good thing. Don't let a little hiccup ruin your mood." I repeated softly, "A little hiccup?" She nodded. "Yeah. Edward didn't mean any harm. He can be a little immature sometimes. Don't hold it against him." I let out a small laugh and didn't say anything more. The atmosphere at the table grew silent. Wendy ate with gusto, but I couldn't taste a thing. The next morning, as soon as I arrived at the office, Edward was waiting for me at the door. He was holding a cup of coffee, his smile so perfectly well behaved it looked like it was straight out of a script. "Morning, Jason." I nodded, not planning to make small talk, and started to walk past him. "Wait, can we talk for a second?" he asked, hurrying to catch up, his voice soft and deliberately ingratiating. "Go ahead," I said, stopping. He glanced around before lowering his voice. "About yesterday, I really didn't do it on purpose." I looked at his meticulously groomed eyebrows. "You're an assistant. How did you get access to the HR permissions page?" I misclicked." He hung his head, his voice tinged with grievance. "I wasn't trying to get you fired. I wouldn't dare. Wendy asked me to help her look up some data, and I thought it was a test page, so I just filled in a test template. It was only after I filled it out that I realized something was wrong, but the system seemed to freeze. I didn't know what happened after that, so I just left it." He looked up at me, his eyes slightly red. "Jason, I really admire you. It's incredible that you've reached this position. I've always looked up to you as a role model." For a moment, I was speechless. He stepped a little closer and added, "I'm not the kind of person who schemes. If you're angry, I can go apologize to HR." I lowered my gaze. "Just don't go clicking on random things in the future." "Thank you, Jason." His eyes instantly lit up like a pardoned prisoner's. He smiled and handed me the coffee. "This is the one you usually drink. I remembered you like it with half a sugar." I took the cup, my fingers pausing. He was right, I did like this coffee. I rarely drank it at the office because I didn't want to reveal my preferences, unless someone was paying very close attention to me. And he had been here for less than 3 months. I looked up and met his innocent gaze, and suddenly I felt a thin layer of ice pressing against my back. Not long after I returned to my desk, a new message popped up on my phone. Vicky, hey, this new assistant VP of yours has a pretty exciting nightlife. I opened the screenshot she sent. It was a post from his social feed, published at 2 in the morning. Edward had posted a photo of a candlelit dinner. On the table were 2 steaks and 2 glasses of red wine. The caption read, "Thanks to R. for all the support. I'm finally worthy of the title assistant to the VP." A few familiar faces had liked the post. Several people commented, "Edward's looking sharper than ever. Proof that hard work pays off. You did it." I stared at the photo for a few seconds and suddenly noticed the wrist of the hand to the right of the wine glass. It wore a magnetic clasp bracelet, the exact style of business watch Wendy always wore. I clicked on his profile and scrolled back. This wasn't the first subtle dig he'd posted. Some people say I'm lucky. That's because I know who to follow. Keeping pace is more important than just working hard. There's more than one VP. I'm an acting VP too. Every sentence was cleverly packaged, a mix of genuine-sounding boasts and plausible deniability, making it impossible to call him out. I exited the page, my fingers drumming on the desk. The company's weekly meeting started promptly at 2 p.m. I had assumed the focus of the day would be my official promotion, but as soon as the meeting began, Wendy cleared her throat and changed the subject. Today, in addition to announcing Jason's promotion to vice president, there's another personnel matter to address. She looked to the right side of the conference table and nodded at Edward. Due to the addition of project chain management functions within the strategic department, we are creating a new position of assistant to the VP. Edward will take on this role, assisting VP Johnston with daily coordination. The room fell silent. A few seconds later, someone clapped softly, followed by a sparse, scattered applause. I looked at Wendy's calm, composed face across from me. Her lips curved in a smile that seemed to say, "You already knew, didn't you?" Then I looked at Edward. His cheeks were slightly flushed, and he wore a polite, flattered smile, looking every bit the part of someone humbled by the honor. No one would have guessed the real reason he had become a key figure overnight. I glanced around the room. Most of them had probably figured it out, but they were all pretending not to see. Wendy said, "VP Johnston, why don't you say a few words?" I stood up, gave Edward an expressionless look, and said in a calm voice, "I won't let personal feelings get in the way of my work, but I hope our new assistant remembers that in this position, you are responsible for every action you take." He froze for a second, then started nodding eagerly. Yes, you're right, Jason. I'll be careful." The meeting continued, but my mind was filled with a single thought. From this day on, he was no longer just Wendy's little protege. He had been officially brought into the inner circle as my guy, at least on the surface. The moment I got back to my office, I opened my laptop, and the familiar notification box popped up again. "Do you wish to cancel the termination request? The submission will be locked in 72 hours. I stared at the button for a long time, my fingertip hovering over cancel, but I never clicked it. Everything had happened too quickly, so fast it felt like a pre-written script. Wendy hadn't even bothered with a pretense she just promoted him, as if she assumed I wouldn't leave, or perhaps she simply didn't care if I did. And I suddenly understood. It wasn't that she didn't know what he had done, she just didn't care if I was humiliated by it. The system was still counting down. 8 minutes and 37 seconds until submission to HR. I smiled faintly and closed the window. On Saturday morning, sunlight hit the nightstand, and I was woken by my alarm. The silver ring on my finger glinted in the light. It was the engagement ring Wendy and I had exchanged 3 years ago. At the time, she had said, "The day you get promoted, we'll get married." I had laughed and replied, "What if I never get promoted?" She had ruffled my hair. "Then I'll help you get promoted." For years, our lives had revolved around work. Overtime, business trips, project negotiations, we often spent our holidays at the office. I once thought we were partners, moving forward side by side, our relationship and careers growing stronger step by step. At the very top of my phone's photo album, there's still a picture of a tuxedo. It was custom made, pure black, slim fit, with a perfectly tailored shoulder line. I took the picture the first time I went to a bespoke tailor, vowing to try it on the day I became VP. When you wear that, I swear I won't be able to take my eyes off you. That's what Wendy had said. She was smiling at me then, her eyes filled with genuine pride. I saved that photo in a dedicated album and named it The Future. I just never imagined the future would arrive so quickly and fall apart just as fast. At 2 p.m., while I was organizing department files, my phone screen lit up. It was a message from Vicky. It was a video. Are you ready for this? I'm afraid you're going to want to smash your phone. I frowned and opened the video. It started in a high-end bespoke suit shop on the second floor of a mall. The camera was a bit shaky, clearly filmed in secret. In the frame, a man stood with his back to the camera on a fitting platform, wearing a crisp white tuxedo. I recognized the shoulder line instantly. It was the same one I had saved in my album. The camera panned slightly, and Wendy came into view. She was lounging on a sofa, a faint smile on her face as she looked at her phone. The man walked over and asked her something. She looked up and reached out to adjust his bow tie. It was a natural, familiar gesture, tinged with affection, one I knew all too well. It was how she had touched me countless times. The camera zoomed in, and I saw they were both wearing identical matching magnetic bracelets. I'd seen those bracelets before. Last month, on Edward's birthday, he said the company gave them out as employee anniversary gifts. But when he posted a photo, the caption read, "Love this special gesture." I hadn't thought much of it then. Now, I realized that gesture was probably an inside joke between the two of them. At the end of the video, she stood up, walked over to him, and leaned in to whisper something. Though I couldn't hear what she said, the closeness, the smile, there was no mistaking it. I held my breath as the video stopped on the final frame of him turning around. That face. It was Edward. My fingers trembled, nearly dropping the phone. The video looped and played again. I watched it 3 times, each viewing making it clearer that the tuxedo should have been for me, that the person should have been me. I picked up my phone and dialed Wendy's number directly. She answered quickly, the noise of a shopping mall in the background. "Hey, Jason? I'm busy right now, Are you at a suit shop?" I cut her off, my voice eerily calm. She paused, her tone faltering. "Oh yeah, I'm with Edward." "Doing what with Edward?" "Helping him pick out a suit for his brother," she answered almost without thinking. "His brother's getting married next month, and he dragged me along to help him choose a style. I was in the area. The two of you were trying on tuxedos," I said. There was a 2-second silence on the other end, followed by a light laugh. "Are you still thinking about that? Why are you keeping tabs on me? Jason, have you been a little too on edge lately?" "I have a video," I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm enough to stop her. "You were spying on me?" She shot back. "I wasn't the one who filmed it," I said, taking a deep breath, "but the picture is pretty clear. You're adjusting his bow tie, he's wearing that bracelet, and you're smiling." "That was a misunderstanding," she explained immediately. "His brother was in the changing room, and the tailor asked him to try on a sample for size. He was worried it wouldn't fit, so I helped him fix it." "Why are you always so suspicious?" I heard myself let out a soft laugh. "Wendy, you're a really good liar." She sighed, a hint of annoyance in her voice. "Fine. I know you've been under a lot of pressure lately, but can you not take it out on me? You don't think this is absurd?" I asked. "What's absurd is you." Her voice started to sharpen. "I was just trying to be nice and help someone pick out a suit, and you have to twist it into something ugly. Jason, can you stop being so controlling?" I gripped the phone, my knuckles turning white. "So your conclusion is that I'm the one who's wrong? If that's how you want to see it, I can't stop you," she said coldly. "Then there's no need to explain," I said calmly. "Wendy, we're done." "What do you mean, done?" I hung up the phone. The moment I pressed the screen, my hands stopped shaking. After hanging up, I stared at the dark screen for a long time. The tightness in my chest didn't immediately fade. Instead, it slowly spread, like something cold diffusing through my body. I opened my contacts and found her name, Wendy. With a gentle swipe, I clicked on the details and deleted the contact. Then I opened my messages, searched for Wendy, blocked her, and deleted the conversation. I purged everything, one by one. Photos, chat histories, voice and video messages, shared notes. I even took off the silver ring she gave me and put it in a drawer. With every deletion, my heart sank a little lower. But strangely, by the end, all that was left was a sense of clarity. After clearing everything, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the company icon on my desktop. It was only then that I realized that for the past few years, I hadn't just given her my heart. I had handed over the rhythm of my life to her. And when I trusted her the most, she had effortlessly changed the channel. Late at night, I walked out onto the balcony and opened the window. A cool breeze rushed in, making me shiver slightly. The streetlights reflected on the glass, showing a stranger's face. I suddenly let out a small laugh. She wasn't wrong. I had been too slow. I turned my phone back on, opened the system page, and saw the familiar line of text. Your termination request will be officially processed tomorrow at 6 p.m. I didn't move. The wind rustled the curtains, and the lights outside flickered. I watched the screen quietly, as if waiting for a countdown to reach 0. In that moment, for the first time, I felt a strange lightness, not relief, not anger, but liberation. At 9 a.m., I was at the HR office. Kevin from HR looked at me, completely stunned. Jason, what's this? I handed him the resignation form I had prepared. This is official. Please follow the procedure. He clearly hadn't heard anything and scrambled to check the system. After confirming the information was correct, he whispered, the system processed it yesterday. You didn't cancel it? I shook my head. No. His expression immediately changed, and he managed an awkward smile. The company really can't afford to lose you. You're the head of the strategy department, the new VP. Why the sudden? I didn't explain. I just said, let's just get the paperwork done. He looked like he wanted to say more, but ultimately didn't press, silently opening the system to process my departure. Printing the forms, deactivating my ID badge, signing documents, the whole process took less than 20 minutes. After signing the last page, he let out a soft sigh. Jason, I sincerely wish you all the best in the future. As I got up to leave, I ran into Mr. Wu, the finance manager, who had just arrived. He froze for a second when he saw the resignation papers in my hand, his mouth opening and closing without a word. I nodded and smiled at him, as naturally as I did any other day. Except this time, no one joked, "Morning, Mr. VP." As I walked down the hallway, a few colleagues looked up, their expressions complicated. Someone whispered he really left. No one came after me. No one tried to stop me. I knew they had already heard something. They were all just waiting to see if I would press that cancel button. They knew all along that I wouldn't. I walked into the strategy department and gathered my few belongings. A folder, a potted plant, a notebook, and a framed photo. I packed slowly, each item a farewell to the past. Before leaving, I glanced at the project manual on my desk, for years of work bound inside. On the title page, I had written a line for myself. It doesn't matter if others don't understand, as long as I understand myself. I shut down my computer, picked up the cardboard box, and walked out of the office. I had just reached the lobby when my phone vibrated. It was Wendy. Where are you right now? I didn't answer and kept walking. Before I could even exit the building, she appeared at the elevator bank, walking quickly. Jason, are you insane? She grabbed my arm, her voice low and trembling. You really didn't cancel it? I looked at her, my eyes as still as a stagnant pond. Didn't you say it was a joke? I'm just playing along. She stared at me as if waking from a nightmare. Do you have any idea that the internal announcement goes out this afternoon? If you leave now, you're throwing me under the bus. Oh, I nodded. But the system says the termination request was submitted by Edward, using your credentials. You two dug this hole yourselves. He doesn't know what he's doing. I told him to fill out a test form, and you have to make a big deal out of it. I didn't say a word. Her face darkened instantly. You planned this all along, didn't you?
No, Ian suara tunasli.
I just decided not to stay. Jason, she said, almost through gritted teeth, you're taking core projects with you, the entire team. This is betrayal. A small smile touched my lips. Firing me isn't a betrayal, but my refusal to cancel it is? Her breathing grew ragged as she struggled to control her emotions. It's not too late to go back. I can smooth this over. The company will understand it was a momentary lapse in judgment. Unfortunately, I said, looking at her, I'm not in the mood to explain myself right now. She stared at me and said, word by word, don't think you've won just because you're leaving. I laughed. I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to leave. I shook her hand off and walked away. The sun was shining. I walked through the glass doors of the lobby and out onto the bustling street. No one called out behind me. No one tried to stop me. Just like that, I was truly gone. At 3 p.m., the company conference room was in chaos. A system notification popped up. Project lead, employee ID X0373, has been deactivated. Replacement pending. That was me. Then came alerts for expired data review permissions, missing backup file paths. 5 consecutive notifications brought the entire strategy department to a screeching halt. Several senior team leads also submitted their resignations, with the system showing them as pending approval. In the conference room, the project department head's face was pale. What did Jason take with him? Someone whispered he didn't take any files. He took the people. 3 entire project teams submitted transfer and resignation requests this morning. The handover documents for key positions are encrypted, and only the original lead, one of the veterans who left with him, can unlock them. Wendy sat at the head of the table, her expression terrifyingly dark. Edward sat beside her, flipping through documents with trembling fingers, his face whiter than paper. Ms. White, Kevin from HR walked in holding a stack of printouts. These are the new resignation requests submitted today, including Mr. Smith from Planning, Mr. White from Operations, and Xing from Finance. Wendy slammed her hand on the table. Are they all crazy? Is everyone quitting? An assistant from the project department whispered. They said they're going to a new company with Jason. The conference room fell into a dead silence. No one dared to make a sound. Edward's voice was weak. So, are we still having the weekly meeting this afternoon? Wendy stared at the screen, at the lines of personnel pending, data unavailable, and documents locked. She felt as if she had been publicly humiliated. She asked through gritted teeth, what company did he go to? No one answered, but everyone knew her surest bet had just backfired spectacularly. I stood outside the company building, the sun at my back, casting a long, distinct shadow on the steps. My phone rang. It was Vicky. I answered. All set? Just walked out. She let out a light laugh on the other end. The news is already out. Screenshots of your old company's internal system failure are going viral online. That was fast. The people you took with you are all industry elites. It'd be weird if they didn't make some noise. We were quiet for a moment. I ran my fingertips along the edge of the cardboard box. Her voice turned serious. We've got the space cleared out for you here. The whole planning department is ready to integrate. You said you were bringing projects over, so I kept the old folders. You guys can get started tomorrow. I watched a bus drive past on the other side of the road, my mind flashing to the new office's floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee machine, and private conference rooms, all things that no longer belonged to Wendy. I said softly, Vicky, yeah, thank you. She paused for a second, then her tone lightened. All right, enough with the sappy stuff. This is a partnership, not a charity case. I laughed out loud and looked up at the sky. The wind blew a few stray hairs across my face. It was cool but not biting. I turned and walked away without looking back. The building behind me felt like an old, decaying stage. The actors had left, the lights were out, and the show was over. I had finally walked out. 3 days later, I walked through the doors of my new company. The company, Momentum Strategies, was a startup Vicky had founded 3 years ago with 2 old friends. It wasn't large, but it had an excellent reputation in the industry thanks to several successful digital transformation projects. Now, She had offered me the position of Director of Operations, complete with stock options, a generous offer. More importantly, I had brought with me the most formidable team from my old firm's strategic division. The team that had once built an empire for our old employer was now regrouped in a new battleground, their morale surprisingly united. "If you hadn't come, we were about to fall apart," said Sarah, the department head, patting me on the shoulder. "Jason, this time we're really going to win." I stood by the office's floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the familiar office building across the street. I had worked there for 10 years. Now it was the competition. "I'm not looking back. The conference room is ready. Vicky is waiting for you," my assistant said, stepping into my office. I pulled my gaze away and walked toward the conference room. Our very first project was a head-to-head battle with my old firm. The client, Apex Group, one of the top 3 clients in the industry. The project, an internal digital transformation. The contract was worth 7 figures. I had worked with this client for 2 years at my old firm. Now they were the subject of our first major fight. "How do you want to play this one?" Vicky asked, looking at me. "To win," I replied. She smiled. "I love how direct you are." I glanced at the proposal materials on the table, flipped to the first page of the strategy section, and saw Edward's name printed clearly. He was our opponent's project lead. I said softly, "Perfect." The pitch meeting was held at Apex Group's headquarters. At 9 a.m., my team and I arrived on time. As I took a seat in the corridor outside the conference room, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Edward walked in, wearing a pair of shiny leather shoes and carrying a folder. He was dressed in a well-tailored white suit, his hair perfectly styled. His eyes swept across the room and locked onto mine. For a split second, he faltered, a flash of panic in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. "Jason," he smiled. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." I smiled back. "Did the assistant to the VP get a new title?" "Just a temporary transfer to lead the project," he said with a smirk, a hint of defiance in his eyes. "Wendy said Apex is a huge account, so she needed me to lead the charge." I looked at him and said nothing. Once the meeting started, we presented first. On stage, I laid out our team's research on Apex Group's old systems, an analysis of employee pain points, and a visualized solution based on AI-optimized workflows. The logic was clear, the data solid. Several of the client's executives nodded frequently. When it was my old firm's turn, Edward started his presentation, flipping through the slides and speaking quickly and confidently. But the content was very familiar. I quietly watched the data comparison chart on the 6th page of his PowerPoint. It was the analytical framework I had written for this project at my old company. Even with a new template, the logic of the chart was instantly recognizable. So he was even this adept at stealing. I opened the folder in my hand and passed Vicky a note. It said, "Initiate backup plan." She understood immediately and gave a signal to her assistant. 5 minutes later, our alternative proposal was projected onto the screen in real time. Chain Corp's supply chain traceback process from last year's 3rd quarter isn't in your presentation, I pointed out on the spot. Our model is based on data from the 1st quarter of this year. Edward's tone became noticeably flustered. I missed the issues with the outsourced system from the end of last year. The client lost over $8 million because of that, I said, looking at the client representative. The rep looked surprised. "How did he know about that?" I smiled faintly. "One of the engineers on our team personally worked on that system's traceback project. I can email you the full report on what caused the failure right now." Edward was clearly panicking. He began frantically shuffling through his papers, trying to find supplementary materials, but it was obvious he hadn't prepared a second plan. The client's team began whispering among themselves. One of them had already closed Edward's proposal booklet with a look of impatience. I pressed my advantage. "Our team can complete a process simulation test within 2 weeks and deliver a demo version ahead of schedule. If the client is satisfied, we can then proceed to system deployment." "Can your team's size handle Apex's deployment volume?" a representative asked, skeptical. "We were formerly the strategy group at Apex Dynamics. The internal system they currently use was developed by us," I replied. The representative nodded, finally looking satisfied. That system is indeed very good. By this point, Edward was standing silently to the side, his face pale. His assistant discreetly tried to hand him a second proposal, but his hands were shaking so badly that he couldn't grasp it. The entire stack of papers fell to the floor with a sharp thud. In that instant, all eyes in the room were on him. I spoke softly. As I recall, the assistant to the VP isn't supposed to be in charge of systems projects, is he? His eyes were wild, his lips trembling. For a moment, he was utterly speechless. The client representative made the final call. We've decided to go with Momentum Strategies solution. We'll sign the letter of intent shortly. I closed my laptop, stood up, and bowed. Thank you for your trust. As I walked out of the conference room, I saw Edward's reflection in the glass. He was standing frozen in place, his fingers gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles were white. This was the first time I had defeated him so easily in broad daylight, shattering the carefully constructed persona he wore. No yelling, no triumphant gloating, just simple facts that dismantled the facade he had desperately tried to maintain. Less than 2 hours after the Apex Group deal was officially announced, my old firm descended into chaos. A project manager leaked screenshots in an internal group chat, claiming client data was stolen and proposal materials were leaked, causing an uproar. Wendy exploded in an emergency management meeting that afternoon. Who the hell gave him the PowerPoint? The room was dead silent. No one answered. Are you all mute? She yelled, slamming her hand on the table. Someone mumbled. It seems like someone altered the system permissions last month. Who approved the change? It was Edward using your secondary admin access. Wendy's face turned ashen. She spun around to look at Edward, who was sitting in the corner. You touched the system? Edward stammered, I just wanted to add some data. I didn't think he would. You got humiliated by him in front of everyone, and you still have the nerve to talk? His face flushed crimson, and he couldn't get a word out. Wendy stood up furiously. The board is launching an investigation into the security breach. You can explain it to them yourself. No one else in the room dared to speak. Just then, an assistant entered and reported in a low voice, Jason's team has already signed the contract with Apex. They're preparing to go live with testing. The fury in Wendy's eyes burned even brighter, but she knew that she had well and truly lost this round. From the night they lost the Apex bid, Wendy stopped answering Edward's calls. At first, he just sent texts cautiously saying, Wendy, I didn't think he would be there. Then he switched to voice messages, his tone growing more frantic. I really didn't mean to. Please, just trust me this once. Soon it escalated to a barrage of video requests and phone calls, all of which went unanswered. He tried to wait for her outside her office, but she didn't even look up, just instructed her assistant, please remove any irrelevant personnel. He looked as if he'd been slapped in public, his face flushing red, but he still managed a strained smile. I just want to explain. The assistant cut him off coldly with 5 words. Internal review. Closed door. Back at his small desk, he flipped through the failed proposal, page by page, his nails digging into his palms. It was a template he had copied from Wendy's computer, the logic, structure, vocabulary, even the case studies were identical. He had just borrowed the framework Jason had left behind and slapped a new cover on it. He never imagined Jason would counter with a newer, more comprehensive plan that would leave him utterly defenseless. He certainly never imagined Wendy would discard him like trash, barring him from her office. He couldn't accept it. He had endured so much for years, climbing his way from an obscure new hire to her side, becoming the one who understood her best. He didn't even take a day off when her mother was hospitalized. He thought he was on the path to becoming the man who would sit beside her at board meetings. But now it was all gone. On the morning of the 4th day, everything blew up. During a routine audit, the company's legal department discovered 17 instances of special privilege access to the system over the past 3 months, involving personnel changes, performance reviews, and draft layoff submissions. The operating account was a secondary executive-level credential. The user, Edward. The key issue is that this secondary credential originated from Wendy White's primary account, With no backup authorization, the head of legal's voice echoed through the conference room. Isn't he a junior assistant? The HR director asked softly. Yes, the HR manager replied. On what grounds did he submit senior-level personnel changes? Allegedly, he had verbal authorization from Ms. White. Then where are the company's system protocols? Where is the access control? The risk management? No one dared to speak. The personnel change log prominently featured the termination recommendation for Jason Johnston, time-stamped last Friday afternoon, the day Wendy was working late. Furthermore, we found that his use of these privileges was not tied to any approval workflow. The head of legal continued, flipping through the file. This means a junior assistant could bypass all levels of review and directly submit changes at the executive level. Around the table, the executives exchanged uneasy glances. Did Wendy White know about this at the time? System logs show her account was never logged out during his operations, which means she was present. A low murmur went through the executives as they turned the pages of the file, which now felt like a sentencing document. That afternoon, the board convened an emergency meeting in the second-floor multifunction hall. The curtains were drawn, and the air was suffocatingly tense. Wendy sat at the head of the table. The seat next to her, which had belonged to Jason, was empty. It was a pale gray, high-backed chair, wiped clean but still serving as a silent, mocking presence. Ms. White, the chairman began without preamble. Were you aware that Edward was using your credentials to repeatedly submit unauthorized executive-level personnel changes? I authorized him to handle some temporary tasks, Wendy said, her brow furrowed. He said he was testing the system, so I didn't interfere. He submitted a layoff list, the vice chairman rapped on the table. A list that included your fiancé, Jason Johnston. You consider that a test? She fell silent. Did you set an approver for these actions? He was using my secondary credential. I didn't set up backup authorization. So you're saying a junior assistant had free reign over the entire system? A ripple of shock went through the room. Wendy, you are a vice president and a member of the company's security committee. You, of all people, should know what constitutes a breach of authority. Wendy's lips were pressed into a thin line, a vein throbbing on her forehead. Since you took office, the company's technical risks have soared, projects have consistently underperformed, and client attrition is up. And yet, you allowed an assistant with no formal rank to freely access the system's core. Do you have anything to say for yourself? She opened her mouth, but found she couldn't form a single plausible excuse. The board has decided, effective immediately, to suspend you from all duties. Further action will be taken pending the results of the internal investigation. As the words fell, the room was shrouded in a heavy silence. Wendy leaned back in her chair, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The woman who had once so confidently and dismissively said, "He was just messing around," had finally lost all her chips. That afternoon, a photo circulated in the company's group chats. It was taken outside the conference room. Edward, disheveled and red-eyed, was shouting hysterically at the closed door. "That's impossible. I didn't do anything wrong. What right do you have to investigate me? I was just looking out for her. I was trying to help her." Two security guards were trying to escort him off the floor. He shoved one of them away, his tie askew, nearly stumbling. Someone recognized his shoes as a limited edition pair he'd been showing off last week. He was still yelling, "She's my girlfriend. We were going to be together. She promised me." "That's enough." The voice of the HR director came from inside the room. "Edward, please wait in the hallway." He continued to struggle until one of the older guards grabbed his arm firmly. "You can't do this to me. I'm her person." His voice, cracked and distorted, echoed down the hall, the sound of his last shred of dignity being torn away. At 5 p.m., Vicky forwarded me the photo. In it, he was sitting on a planter outside the company entrance, his face buried in his arms, his shoulders shaking. I stared at the picture for a few seconds. I felt no pity, no satisfaction, just a profound sense of calm. It was over. The boy who had always meekly called me Jason had finally shown his true colors. I filed the photo away and closed my laptop. A calendar reminder popped up on my screen. 10 a.m. tomorrow, official contract signing with Apex Group. I stood up and walked to the window. The setting sun bathed the glass in a golden red light. And now, Mr. Jason Johnston from Momentum Strategies will be delivering our keynote speech. The boundaries of trust, risk and reconstruction in the data age. As the host finished, I walked from the wings to the podium. The auditorium was packed. The front rows were filled with high-profile corporate executives, investors, and media, their camera flashes flickering constantly. This was the most anticipated digital industry summit of the year. To be on this stage was a mark of industry recognition, a silent declaration of status. I stood at the podium, looking out at the audience, feeling no nervousness. Behind me, a massive LED screen played my introductory video. Formerly with an industry-leading firm, led multiple digital transformation projects. Currently Director of Operations at Momentum Strategies, leading his team to major breakthroughs on several top-tier projects. I took a quiet breath and began my speech. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Johnston. Today, I don't just want to talk about technology or data. I want to talk about the price of trust. The slide changed to a blank table with only 2 words: authority and responsibility. The room was silent. I knew many of them were here for a story, and I wouldn't disappoint them. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of the 3rd row, slightly to the left. Wendy was sitting there, looking exhausted. She was dressed formally but appeared much more worn down than before. Next to her sat Edward, in a dark blue suit, his hair impeccably styled, but it couldn't hide the weariness in his expression. I wasn't surprised to see them. This kind of industry conference was open to the public. Besides, the stage I was standing on was one they once thought I could never reach. When the spotlight swept over her face, she instinctively turned away. I didn't look at them. I continued. I once worked at a company for 10 years. I thought time could earn trust. I turned and clicked to the next slide, which showed a data permission flowchart with complex logical links. But I later learned that a single line of code, a one-time temporary authorization, can completely erase a person's trust. I didn't name names, but everyone in the audience knew who and which company I was talking about. I heard a small stir from a section of the crowd. People were whispering, some sneaking glances toward the 3rd row. Wendy remained seated, her head bowed, as if she couldn't hear a thing. Edward sat rigidly upright. His hands clenched so tightly his nails were digging into his palms. The smile had long vanished from his face, replaced by a stony silence. Authority can empower someone to change a system, but it can also destroy a partnership or even a relationship, I said, my voice calm but firm. A misused permission doesn't just destroy a project, it destroys the entire system of trust behind it. It causes teams to fall apart and makes relationships that could have continued impossible. The screen flashed to a now infamous news screenshot. Core project at Apex Dynamics spirals out of control. Managerial authority allegedly tampered with by intern. Lead VP suspended pending investigation. A low gasp went through the audience. People have asked me if I regret leaving. What I've always wanted to say is that I was never the one who should have had regrets. I scanned the crowd. I'm standing here today to tell all of you not to underestimate the professional teams and the trust that are sacrificed in the wake of a single abuse of power. The first round of applause began. I paused for a few seconds before continuing. Fortunately, I later joined a new team that believes in me and is worthy of my trust. We've rebuilt our processes, our systems, and our faith in each other. The screen switched to photos of me working with my new team. Some were laughing, others were huddled over a conference table drawing flowcharts, with the large windows of our new office in the background. Today, I am proud to stand here and share this story. I concluded because I believe that leaving anywhere is not an end, but the beginning of a new choice. The entire auditorium erupted in thunderous applause that lasted for more than 10 seconds. I saw Edward lower his head and fiercely wipe his face with the back of his hand. He was crying, genuinely crying, a raw, defeated kind of cry that he couldn't hide. And I felt nothing. I turned and walked calmly off the stage. The same night I gave my speech, several major industry news accounts posted a story almost simultaneously. Breaking Apex Dynamics Interim Board has voted 12-1 to terminate Wendy White's position as vice president, effective immediately. The top comment read, "Finally." Before the buzz could die down, a screenshot of the meeting minutes was leaked. Due to chronic mismanagement of access controls, dereliction of oversight, and successive project failures, Wendy White will no longer hold any managerial position and will be placed on a probationary period. That night, my group chats were buzzing. "Did you see the news? She's finished. Heard she's already moved out of the executive apartment. Edward probably got taken down with her. The contracting firms won't hire him now." I didn't reply. I just silenced my phone and continued preparing materials for the next day's project. The coffee on my desk had gone cold. I stood up to pour it out. As I turned, I saw a familiar white car parked at the street corner under the lights outside my window. I stood there watching. I could faintly make out a silhouette inside. It was her. She just sat there, motionless, as if waiting for something. But I didn't go down. She needed to understand that I had already walked past every point of no return. All that was left for her was to go around in circles by herself. Wendy asked to meet me on a drizzly afternoon. She was wearing a gray trench coat, standing outside the coffee shop downstairs from the Momentum Strategies office, looking unusually serene. I wasn't surprised. Someone like her would never stay silent for long. "I want to talk," she said softly, her eyes holding a restraint I'd never seen before. "Jason, I've been thinking a lot about what went wrong between us." I sat down without a word. She tried to push a cup of coffee toward me, then quickly pulled her hand back, as if realizing she no longer had that right. "I was wrong," she said, her voice low. "The day you left, I thought you were just being impulsive. Then I watched you win the Apex project on your own. Build up a whole new division. You didn't need me anymore, did you?" "It's not about needing or not needing," I said steadily. "You were the one who cut the thread of trust." She looked down, her knuckles white. "I was thinking if we could start over." I cut her off gently. "Wendy, this isn't about who won or who lost. We just weren't right for each other." She looked up. In that instant, her expression finally changed, from trying to persuade me to truly admitting defeat. "You've already moved on ahead of me," she said. I didn't deny it. "Yes, I'm far ahead now." It wasn't because I hated her, nor because I needed her to regret anything. It was just that I no longer wanted that kind of relationship. On the day of the new company's board meeting, I didn't wear a formal suit, just a simple white shirt under a gray-blue blazer. When the meeting ended and the chairman officially announced my promotion to the board of directors, the room filled with applause. My hands remained on my notebook. I didn't even lift them for a second. It wasn't because I was overwhelmed, but because I had never intended to get anything back through confrontation. Everything I had been through didn't deserve to be repaid with vengeance. I was just, step by step, taking back the seat that was rightfully mine. During lunch, the younger staff in my department started clamoring for me to treat them. "Director Johnston, you're on the board now. Treating us to something nice isn't too much to ask, right?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Fine. Whoever stays latest tonight gets to pick the menu." "Huh? Shouldn't it be whoever leaves earliest gets to treat? I'm a director now. I make the rules." The room erupted in laughter. Vicky knocked on my doorframe. "You free? Let's get some air before the afternoon meeting." "Where to?" "The beach." I paused for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." The wind was strong at the beach that evening, whipping sand into the air. Vicky and I walked side by side, our feet leaving a trail of shallow prints. "Do you remember the first time we had a drink here?" she asked suddenly. I remember. I nodded. "You said starting a business was a fool's errand, and I laughed at you for being an idealist." "Well, now you're a realist living in an ideal," she said. I didn't reply. The wind carried the scent of salt and a damp warmth. She stopped walking and turned to look at me, her voice very soft. "If I had shown up sooner, would you have chosen me?" I didn't answer right away. She didn't press, just stood there waiting. The sea breeze tousled my hair. I looked out at the horizon, where the clouds were churning like waves that had yet to settle. I thought for a long time, then finally smiled. "I wouldn't have chosen anyone." She raised an eyebrow. "Right now, I just want to choose myself." She was taken aback for a second. Then she smiled too. Good, she said. Then from now on, we'll choose ourselves and walk side by side. I nodded. Some relationships don't need promises or answers. Just being able to stand together, looking at the same view, is enough. Early in the morning, I sat alone on the beach, my shoes off to the side, my feet buried in the fine sand. The waves lapped gently at the shore, one after another. Sunlight pierced through the thin mist, warming my face. My laptop was beside me, open to the new summer strategic plan. A few initial concepts were still undecided, but I already had a general direction. I opened another folder, to a draft email I had written to myself. Jason, do you remember yourself 10 years ago? He came to the city alone from a small town, wearing a pair of worn-out leather shoes, watching all the sharply dressed people on the subway. He thought that if he just worked hard enough, someone would eventually see him. Now you know, you don't need to be seen by anyone. You are worthy of respect just as you are. I closed my laptop. In the distance, a child was building a sandcastle, carefully shaping its towers. His parents sat nearby, watching him with smiles. I watched the child's movements quietly, and for a moment, I thought of myself as a boy. I had walked down many wrong paths and met the wrong people, but thankfully, I never abandoned myself. I could finally live without trying to meet someone else's expectations. I finally understood that life isn't about winning or losing, it's about choices. I choose the person I am now. I choose this moment of peace. The tide came in, washing over my feet. I stood up and gently brushed the sand off my clothes. The sun was higher now, its light making the entire surface of the sea glitter. I started walking back, one step at a time, each one firm and steady.